Oftentimes in paintings, you will paint the sky in the first wash of the scene. But in a nocturne painting, we need to start by painting the light first. We're essentially painting the scene in reverse. So one thing that's helpful to do is determine what the brightest areas of your painting are first and go from there. That way, you know that everything you paint needs to be darker than those areas. In this scene, the brightest area of the painting is right here. We have this lamp that's shining down on the leaves here and on this building. That is where I want the primary focus of the painting to be, and that is the brightest part of the painting. So even in this first wash, when I'm just laying in the lights of the scene, I need to keep that in mind. So this is the first bit that I've laid in on the ground, leaving this as the most brightest part of the painting, painting around another light source back here. And I am going to lay in some color in the sky, but this will not be the final value for the sky. I go over it a couple more times after this. This is just to get things going and to get the light established in the scene. So here I used some raw sienna, parts that are a little bit cooler. I've used some lavender, some neutral tint down here. And then for this mixture up in the sky, I'm using some cobalt blue and some neutral tint just to take away the white of the paper and to get that first wash laid down in the scene. So after I've painted this, I let everything dry and then I come back in to start getting into the middle values of the painting. Now that my paper has dried, I'm ready to move into the next phase of the painting. And I'm going to start down here, paint some of the shadow shapes and start to paint around some of these areas to create that feeling of light. Here I'm using a size 12 Escoda Perla brush. That brush gives me a little more control when I'm trying to paint around some of the foliage here. I laid in some light green when I first painted the leaves. Now the little bits that are darker, I'm using Cobalt Turquoise with a little bit of neutral tint on those areas. And trying to get the foliage, I want to preserve the light, but I also don't want everything to look so cut out. So I'm softening, taking away some of that, letting it merge in areas with the middle value shape that I'm painting. Now I'm getting into the shadow side of the house, of the background building. I'm carefully painting around the areas of light. There was some light coming out of the building here. I painted that in the first wash, and now I'm painting around it in this wash. And that's how we get that feeling of light, is by painting around our light sources and increasing the value as we go. And there are some shadows on the ground. I would drug some of those over, just taking my time working around the scene and really trying to look at my reference photo in terms of light and dark and trying to connect the things that are dark. Now when I come up to areas of light, I can paint around them, such as the bits of light back here and the light on the side of the car. Other than that, I'm trying to connect it into this shape. So when I get to the back of the car here, I'm using some neutral tint, cobalt blue, colors like that to paint the shadow side of the car. Now I laid in a little bit of green in the first wash for some of the trees over here on the right. I want to paint around, add a little bit darker value on the green and leave some of that behind what I'm painting, but a lot of it is going to be painted over in darker value. Always trying to connect as much as I can, building up the strength as we go. Now I wanted to connect the shadow on the face of this building and start adding some middle values there. So I'm back to my smaller brush, looking at the slant of the shadows, painting those, but at the same time trying to find connections within that shape as well. So connecting those shadows into the shadow side here, into the darks, always looking for ways to connect wherever I can find them. And now I'm back to a bigger brush, and here I'm using raw sienna, some neutral tint, and just connecting texture and shadow and taking away the lighter areas and really pay attention to the light source here. That is the big connected shadow shape. After I let this dry, I come back in and I paint the dark of the sky. At this stage of the painting, I need to really think about the dark value of the sky. So you can see here how dark I'm going to be, how much strength I'm going to use to paint around the light source here. And what I'm using is some cobalt blue and some neutral tint to get a really deep, dark sky. The key to painting a nocturne is not being afraid to mix up really rich mixtures of paint. And students that use pans of paint seem to struggle more than students that use tubes of paint. And the reason is because with a tube, you can quickly mix up something really dark and rich. Whereas with a pan, it takes a lot more effort to really build up to that strength. So I'm working my way down, painting around the light. I started out with the light really cut out like this, and I felt like it was a little harsh. And so what I ended up doing was taking a damp brush and softening that edge around the light. I really wanted to get that glow effect, adding a little bit more dark on the car, getting that strong shadow down on the ground into place really helps add a feeling of light, and adding in some of the windows in detail over the layer of shadow and texture starts to make this light become more realistic. What I decided to do was take a little bit of gouache and add some of the pole that's connecting the light to the building, get some of those little bits of light in. If there's tiny little details like that, I don't use masking fluid. I can't paint around those little things. So gouache is a good way to get those small little highlights into your scene. Here's how things are looking at this stage. The parts back here at this building, I need to go over them another time, add some more windows and details and things back there. So that's what I'm paying attention to now. Still using my size 12 Escoda Perla brush. I'm always amazed at how when you leave things more vague and you finally start to get some detail in, it starts to come together and click. So this is how things look now, and I felt like the ground down here was too light. And I decided to do another wash of raw sienna, neutral tint, darkening up this part, and then focus this light even more. But one thing I noticed about actually walking through this old village is that there were a lot of cats. I decided that what I wanted to do was add a cat down here. It helped add to the narrative, add to the painting. But before I could add the cat in, there's one thing that was bugging me. The sky was not quite dark enough. And you're gonna find this when you paint nocturne scenes, that sometimes you'll go as strong as you possibly can, but it's not going to be strong enough. So don't be afraid to glaze over an area to get to that strength if you feel like you need to. And I felt like the sky was a bit weak, so I went over with another wash of neutral tint and cobalt blue to really build up that strength, to push out the light even a little bit more than it already was. Now, I wanted to add that cat in that I've been talking about. So I simply Googled an image of a cat walking and used that as a reference. Did a little light pencil drawing there because I haven't painted a lot of cats and I wanted to get this right. I'm looking at the reference photo and just going for it. Then I added the shadow, and then I took a little bit of gouache and added some of the white on the cat, and there is a look at the finished scene. When you are painting a nocturne scene, you need to create a rich mixture of pigment to get the strength and the boldness into your painting to really let the light shine. And also don't be afraid to glaze over things that aren't dark enough. If you can keep these things in mind and really push that value, you can create believable night scenes in watercolor. I have a free resource for you that can help you take a big step forward in your painting. Take a look at this. Have you ever been really excited about a painting and you get all set up, you find that right reference that you're excited about, and then it's time to go and you feel lost? I have a free resource that I want to give to you today that can help with these problems. My 5 steps to plan a successful watercolor painting. I walk you through the crucial planning phase of your painting that will help you understand what you're going to paint first, second, and third. The planning is really so important, especially in watercolor. This medium is harder to correct. It's so immediate. So having that plan is very important. I send you a PDF that you can download. And the great thing about this is you can have it on your phone. You could print it out. You can download this right now before you start your next painting. All you have to do is follow this link here and download my 5-step guide to planning a successful watercolor painting.